All right, guys. So I ran across this very, very, very sad story about how our public school system is failing our kids, okay, particularly those in the inner city. As Baltimore City Schools has released some information about their school performance, and it's not good. It's not good at all. 41% of kids that attend Baltimore City public schools, the high schools, have a GPA of less than 1. Okay, less than 1. They're basically failing almost half. Okay, almost half. And guys, if this is not an indictment on the public school system and how poorly run and mismanaged these funds, these billions of dollars being spent on these school systems are, I don't know what to tell you. But before I get into this, let's take a look at the news coverage of what's going on in Baltimore in terms of their failing school system.
Baltimore City Schools reaches an alarming low in student performance.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps has learned, nearly half of high school students in Baltimore City this year earned a grade point average below a 1.
They take.
When Jovani Patterson ran for Baltimore City Council President last year,
Yet, despite the amount of money they get, we don't see much change.
he ran on a platform that included accountability and education.
Our schools outspend 97% of other major school districts.
And when Project Baltimore showed him how Baltimore City students have been doing this year,
This is terrible.
here is how he reacted.
This is just further perpetuating the cycle of poverty, blight, despair.
This chart was assembled by Baltimore City Schools and obtained by Project Baltimore. It shows the average GPA for every high school grade in the city, freshman through senior. In the first 3 quarters of this past school year, according to the chart, 41% of all Baltimore City high school students earned below a 1.0 grade point average. In other words, nearly half of the roughly 20,600 public high school students in Baltimore earned less than a D average.
It's heartbreaking. If almost half of our kids are failing, what options do they have after high school? This is really disheartening. And it's sad to see this, man.
On the other end of this chart, 21% of city high school students earned a GPA of 3.0 or better, a B average. About half as many who earned below a D. We can also see the district lost more than 700 high school students during the first 3 quarters of this year. In January, City School CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises first sounded the alarm, saying the course failure rate for students had nearly doubled during the COVID shutdowns. A few months later, in May, North Avenue announced students would not be held back for failing classes. This most recent GPA data could show us why North Avenue made that decision. During the second quarter of the 2019-2020 school year, just before COVID hit, 24% of high school students had a GPA below 1. Now, it's 41%. City Schools declined an interview, but told us in a statement the COVID-19 pandemic created significant disruptions to student learning. Starting this summer and beyond, City Schools is providing students with a variety of opportunities to acquire the unfinished learning they lost.
It's not gone. It's not going anywhere.
City Council President Nick Mosby, who defeated Patterson in the election, is reportedly under investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice concerning campaign finances, business, and tax records. Project Baltimore emailed and called Mosby's office, requesting an interview to discuss these numbers concerning student GPAs. We never heard back.
These people don't care, man. They come from the same environment. You know, Nick Mosby is a product of Baltimore City Schools. Brandon Scott's a product of Baltimore City Schools, and they see what's going on. But then when you bring this to them, they don't care. They don't care at all. You have to raise the standard. Everyone should be speaking out about this.
Project Baltimore reached out to the other school systems in our area requesting their GPA data. We were told by all of them that it's not readily available. I'm Chris Papps, and this is Project Baltimore.
All right, guys. So, as you can see there, the people in charge, they don't really care, right? Of course they don't, because they're paid, right? They're getting their money, and their money is not tied to performance. It's not. Because if this was a company, right? This Baltimore City School System, they have a CEO, right? If this was a company, with the type of performance that they're having, that CEO will be fired. They'll be fired. Matter of fact, a whole restructuring of the company would occur because that company could not survive. But see, this is the problem when you have taxpayer funds going to schools and systems and not students. What happens is that there's no accountability. Guys, I mean, Baltimore spends $1.4 billion, $1.4 billion a year. And the CEO of this failing school district makes $333,000 a year. Okay? Basically $333,000 a year for this type of performance. For 41% of the students in that school district to make a GPA of less than 1, which means that most of those kids can't even read or write. But she's getting paid $333,000 a year. Again, you see the problem here? This is where the problem comes in, right? And these are all the other executives at Baltimore City Schools who are getting paid handsomely to underperform. Again, this would not be acceptable at any private company. And that's the problem. Baltimore spends $18,000 per student. $18,000, but you got liberals saying, oh, they need more money. We're underfunded. They need more. We need to keep giving them more. What you mean we need to keep giving them more? You got the CEO making $333,000. I don't understand. Like, how can you afford to pay the CEO $333,000 when the performance is so abysmal? You might want to start thinking about cutting some funds from somewhere else. You might want to start thinking about cutting some salaries. Okay? And guys, I mean, that's just not all. I mean, look, they paid $5.5 million for administrators in general, right? For administrators. They paid teachers $335 million. They make $74,500 a year on average. I mean, it costs the taxpayer in all over $100,000 per teacher when you add in pension and all the benefits and the perks. So over $100,000 per teacher, $74,000 of which goes to salary. I mean, I live in North Carolina. I don't think teachers make $74,000 a year in North Carolina. I don't even think assistant principals make $74,000 a year. But in Baltimore City Schools, where you have failing kids, right? One of the worst school districts in this country, you have teachers being paid a king's ransom. Again, this is the problem. It's not funding. They paid $700,000 to hall monitors when there were no kids going to school last year. That was because of the pandemic. It was online learning, and some of these hall monitors were reassigned, but still, $700,000 on hall monitors. Now they pay $8 million plus to the police. I can imagine that you probably do need police in these school districts, but these police officers are paid handsomely as well, right? And you probably didn't need as many of them during the pandemic. In this article, I mean, it does say that a lot of them were reassigned to non-school related assignments because of the pandemic. They spent $1 million plus on achievement and accountability. So you spend $1 million a year when there is no accountability and there is no achievement. All 6 employees make over $100,000 a year. There's no achievement and accountability in the school district. It's failing. See, it's simple. You see what's going on here? And now you see why they don't care? Because they're getting paid handsomely. Why would you care? They have an Office of Equity, Healing, and Trauma. That's a 3-person office that's paid $235,000 a year, with the executive director making $143,000 a year. They have an Office of Healing Racial Trauma. And these people get paid six-figure salaries while students can't even read or write or do math. But you're sitting here trying to tell me it's a funding problem. No, it's not a funding problem. It's a mismanagement of funds. This don't make any sense. This is unacceptable. The people on the left, they want to fall for this whole critical race theory thing. How the hell is racial education gonna help any student that can't read, write, or do math? How is it gonna help them? How is it gonna help them to know about so-called systemic racism? How is that gonna help them? Because systemic racism is not the problem with why they're not achieving right now. The reason why they're not achieving is because there's no accountability. But I will say that it kind of goes a step further, because Baltimore City Schools, they do have charter schools, and these charter schools do have better performance for Black and Hispanic individuals, right? They do benefit the most from these charter schools. However, it's a lottery system, and not everyone is allowed to participate. And even then, those schools still aren't that great, which to me suggests that it's a deeper issue that starts at home, right? That starts with culture and valuing education and holding kids accountable. Apparently, the number of students that were basically failing doubled during the pandemic, in which, kids were at home, which suggests that parents were not holding their students accountable for learning anything. They weren't holding their kids accountable for doing their homework, for reading, for learning, for attending class, okay, for basic stuff. And guys, they received the COVID money, right? They got the COVID money too when it came to helping fund education and fund these schools. But see, the Democrats told us, oh, no, it's not enough. We need more. So you got money, and the students failed even more. It got worse. But you're telling me you need more money. So again, it's two issues here. It's the home, it's the environment, it's the culture, and it's also the administration that don't care, because they're getting paid fat salaries to basically teach kids nothing. But the Democrats want to act like teaching critical race theory is, kids should know about racial education. Nah, we got kids that can't even read or write. What you talking about? They don't even know nothing about race, right? That's the last thing they need to be worried about. Like I said, man, this is why school choice is important. That whole entire school district, the administration should be fired. They should be replaced. And the whole school district should become school choice, right? Because some of it is traditional, some of it is school choice. The whole school district, right, needs to be a system where kids can go to schools that are funded based off their performance, right? In which parents decide, okay, if this school is performing well, then my kid will go to this school. If this school is not performing well, I'm taking my kid out. We're going to a better school. You can't keep receiving money for failure. But that's the problem with the school district. That's the problem with the government. They will fund things that don't work and that fail, and then turn around and say, well, we need more money. And that's not the case. You got, again, the administrators getting fat six-figure salaries, and nothing's been done about it. They're not being held accountable. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.